You can spend $500,000 building a house and still make it look cheap in seconds. That's the harsh truth most homeowners discover too late. It's not always about square footage. It's not always about budget. It's about details, small design choices, minor finish selections, subtle proportions. And in 2026, when visual literacy is higher than ever thanks to social media and real estate platforms, people notice everything. Buyers notice, guests notice, even you start noticing. The worst part, many of the features that instantly cheapen a home are installed with good intentions. They're convenient, they're common, they're standard, but standard is often the fastest path to forgettable. Today we're breaking down 10 home features that make your house look cheap instantly, and what to do instead if you want your home to feel intentional, elevated, and timeless. Let's start with the most obvious offender, builder-grade lighting fixtures. Nothing exposes a house faster than the wrong lighting. Flush-mount dome lights with frosted glass. Overly small chandeliers floating awkwardly in large rooms. Mass-produced fixtures that look like they came straight from a warehouse shelf. Lighting is jewelry for your home. When it looks generic, the entire space feels generic. And in 2026, where even entry-level homes are upgrading to more refined designs, cheap fixtures stand out immediately. The solution isn't necessarily spending thousands per fixture. It's choosing proportionally correct, cohesive lighting with intentional finishes. Matte black, aged brass, or clean minimalist forms that complement your architecture. Scale matters, placement matters, layering matters. One well-chosen fixture can elevate a room. One poorly chosen fixture can flatten it instantly. Feature number 2, mismatched hardware finishes. Chrome faucets with brushed nickel handles. Black door levers with brass cabinet pulls. Polished stainless appliances next to worn-toned hardware. When finishes compete instead of coordinate, the home feels pieced together rather than designed. This often happens during renovations when items are replaced individually without a cohesive plan. The result is visual noise. High-end homes feel calm because finishes are intentional and limited. Choose one or two complementary metal finishes and carry them consistently throughout the house. Consistency communicates design intelligence, randomness communicates cost-cutting. Feature number 3, visible cluttered wiring, exposed TV cables dangling down walls, extension cords snaking across floors, overloaded power strips. In 2026, with smart homes and entertainment systems common, visible wiring instantly signals lack of planning. It makes even an expensive space feel temporary. The fix is planning for hidden cable management, recessed outlets behind mounted TVS, and wall conduit for future wiring, dedicated media cabinets. Organization behind the scenes makes the visible surfaces feel intentional and polished. Now, let's talk about paint color mistakes. Overly bright, highly saturated colors applied without balance can shrink a space visually and feel dated quickly. Harsh whites with blue undertones can make rooms feel sterile and cold. Inconsistent color palettes from room to room break flow and reduce perceived quality. Luxury homes use cohesive palettes with subtle undertones that complement natural light. That doesn't mean boring beige, it means thoughtful color transitions and attention to lighting conditions. Test paint in multiple lighting scenarios before committing. Paint is relatively inexpensive to change, but first impressions are powerful. Feature number 5, cheap-looking flooring transitions. Abrupt material changes without proper trim, mismatched with tones between rooms. Plastic transition strips that interrupt visual flow. Flooring is one of the largest visual surfaces in your home. When transitions look sloppy or inconsistent, the entire foundation of the design feels unstable. The correct approach is minimizing unnecessary transitions, aligning materials carefully, and using flush, well-integrated thresholds when needed. Continuity creates visual calm. Feature number 6, undersized rugs. This is a subtle but common issue. A rug that floats awkwardly in the center of a room, not anchored under furniture, makes the space feel disconnected. Small rugs shrink perceived room size and signal inexperience in scale. Larger rugs that extend under key furniture pieces create cohesion and elevate the entire space. Scale and proportion are what separate high-end design from amateur styling. Feature number 7, overcrowded decorative shelving. Open shelves filled with random objects, mismatched decor, and excessive personal items quickly feel chaotic. While open shelving can be stylish, it requires restraint and curation. Too many small items create visual clutter, which reads as cheap. High-end spaces use negative space intentionally. Fewer, larger statement pieces with breathing room between them create a refined look. Feature number 8, visible air vents and returns that clash with finishes. Standard white metal vents on dark hardwood floors. Plastic grills in otherwise refined spaces. These small details are often ignored but stand out immediately once noticed. Upgrading to flush mount vents or finishes that blend with flooring and walls enhances cohesion. It's a subtle shift that communicates attention to detail. Feature number 9, outdated window treatments. Heavy, wrinkled curtains hung too low. Blinds that don't fit properly, mismatched fabrics across rooms. Windows are focal points. Poor treatments diminish natural light and create visual heaviness. Hanging curtains higher and wider than the window frame elongates walls and increases perceived ceiling height. Choosing cohesive fabrics and clean lines elevates the entire room instantly. Feature number 10, lack of architectural depth. Flat walls with no trim detail, thin baseboards, narrow door casings. Inexpensive homes often use minimal trim profiles to reduce cost. The result is a visually flat environment. Increasing baseboard height, adding simple crown molding, or upgrading door casings can transform a space dramatically. Architectural detail creates shadow lines, depth, and richness. Without it, rooms feel unfinished. Now here's what ties all of this together. Cheap doesn't always mean low cost, and expensive doesn't automatically mean high quality. A home looks cheap when it feels unintentional. When details clash, when proportions are off, when finishes lack cohesion, when shortcuts are visible. In 2026, buyers and guests are more design-aware than ever. Social media exposure has raised baseline expectations. Even mid-range homes are incorporating refined touches. That means obvious builder-grade features stand out more sharply. But here's the good news. Many of these issues are correctable without massive renovation, lighting swaps, hardware consistency, larger rugs, improved trim, better cable management. These changes can dramatically shift perception. Think about the feeling you want when someone walks into your home: calm, cohesive, intentional, elevated. That feeling is created through consistency and proportion, not necessarily through extravagance. Imagine walking into a room where lighting is warm and layered. Hardware matches across surfaces, flooring flows seamlessly. Walls have subtle architectural detail, decor is curated instead of crowded. Even if the square footage is modest, the space feels thoughtful. That's the difference. Now imagine the opposite: mismatched metals, visible cords, small rugs, builder-grade fixtures, clashing paint colors. It doesn't matter how new the house is, it feels temporary, incomplete. Perception shapes value. In resale scenarios, buyers make emotional judgments within seconds. If a home looks cheap, they assume hidden systems are cheap too. That assumption can reduce offers significantly. A few $1,000s invested in visual upgrades can protect tens of thousands in perceived value. And here's the deeper insight: refinement is subtraction as much as addition. Removing clutter, limiting finished palettes, simplifying design choices, cohesion creates sophistication. The most elevated homes aren't necessarily the most decorated, they're the most disciplined. Every element serves a purpose, nothing feels random. So before you upgrade square footage, upgrade intentionality. Before you chase trends, master proportion. Before you add more decor, edit what you already have. Because in 2026, Making your house look expensive isn't about extravagance. It's about alignment between finishes, between scale and space, between lighting and mood, between architecture and decor. And when those align, your home stops looking cheap instantly and starts looking deliberate. That shift doesn't just change perception, it changes how you feel living inside it. There's a moment that happens quietly. A guest walks into your home for the first time, their eyes scan the space in seconds. They don't consciously analyze trim profiles or lighting temperature or hardware finishes. But they feel something. Either the space feels cohesive, intentional, elevated, or it feels thrown together, slightly off, a little cheaper than it should. And in 2026, when design exposure is constant and expectations are higher than ever, the first impression forms faster and more critically than it did a decade ago. The painful truth is that most homes don't look cheap because of one catastrophic mistake. They look cheap because of layered small decisions that signal inconsistency, poor proportion, or lack of refinement. Let's go deeper into the features that instantly downgrade perception and understand why they matter more than people think. One of the biggest offenders is flat, basic interior doors. Hollow core slab doors with no detailing immediately signal builder-grade construction. They feel lightweight, they sound hollow when closed. They lack visual presence, even if everything else in the room is well designed. Flimsy doors undermine the experience. Doors are touched daily, the tactile feedback matters. Solid core doors or simple panel designs create weight, sound insulation, and visual structure. That upgrade alone shifts how substantial a home feels. Cheap doors don't just look inexpensive, they sound inexpensive. Another subtle downgrade is low baseboards and thin trim. Standard 2 or 3-inch baseboards with minimal profile flatten the entire perimeter of a room. Luxury homes use taller baseboards and more defined casing because they create shadow lines and architectural depth. Without that depth, walls look unfinished. Increasing trim scale relative to ceiling height instantly elevates a space. It doesn't require ornate molding, it requires proportion. When trim is undersized, rooms feel like temporary boxes rather than intentional architecture. Let's talk about ceiling details. Popcorn ceilings, visible patchwork repairs, or uneven texture instantly date a home. Even in newer construction, inconsistent ceiling finish create a cheap look. Smooth, well-finished ceilings reflect light evenly and create a cleaner visual field. Inconsistent texture disrupts that. Ceilings are often ignored because they're not at eye level, but they occupy massive visual space. Refinement overhead changes the entire feel below. Now consider kitchen cabinet spacing and alignment. Crooked installation, uneven gaps between cabinets, or filler panels that look like afterthoughts weaken the entire kitchen. The kitchen is often the focal point of the home. If alignment is off, even slightly, the eye notices. Precision matters. Clean reveals, symmetrical spacing, and consistent hardware placement communicate quality. Sloppy installation communicates haste, and in resale scenarios, buyers equate visual sloppiness with hidden structural shortcuts. Another feature that cheapens a home instantly is excessive visible plastic. Plastic switch plates, cheap vent covers, flimsy closet shelving systems, thin vinyl blinds. Individually, these items seem minor. Collectively, they create a perception of low durability. Swapping plastic for metal, wood, or higher quality composites dramatically changes tactile and visual experience. When materials feel solid, the home feels solid. Lighting temperature inconsistency is another silent downgrade. Mixing cool white bulbs in one room and warm tones in another creates visual confusion. Harsh blue-toned lighting can make even well-designed interiors feel sterile and low-end. Cohesive warm lighting balanced and layered adds depth and comfort. Lighting color temperature is one of the fastest and cheapest upgrades available, yet it's often overlooked. Let's address bathroom details. Basic frameless mirrors glued directly to drywall without trim. Thin, mass-produced towel bars that flex under weight. Generic chrome fixtures in every bathroom regardless of style. Bathrooms are small spaces where finishes are highly visible. Upgrading mirrors with frame designs, selecting cohesive hardware finishes, and choosing fixtures with weight and intention elevate the space instantly. Bathrooms often determine whether a home feels polished or rushed. Now consider exterior impressions, a poorly maintained or undersized mailbox. Faded house numbers, cheap exterior light fixtures. First impressions begin at the curb. Even if interior finishes are strong, a neglected exterior signals overall cost cutting. Upgrading exterior lighting and hardware creates immediate impact. Clean lines, cohesive finishes, and proper scale set the tone before anyone steps inside. Another detail that screams cheap is overcrowded walls. Too many small pieces of art hung randomly, gallery walls without alignment. Frames of inconsistent quality, negative space is powerful. High-end design uses restraint. Fewer, larger pieces with intentional placement feel curated. Visual clutter reads as disorder, and disorder reads as low-end. Now let's talk about furniture scale relative to room size. Oversized sectional sofas crammed into small living rooms or tiny coffee tables floating in large spaces create imbalance. When furniture doesn't match the proportions of the room, the space feels awkward and poorly planned. Even expensive furniture can cheapen a room if scale is wrong. Proper measurement and spatial planning create harmony. Here's another overlooked downgrade: visible wear and deferred maintenance. Scuffed baseboards, peeling caulk lines, chipped paint around door handles, even small imperfections compound visually. They suggest neglect. Maintenance is part of aesthetic value. Regular touch-ups protect perception and resale value. Let's address countertops. Thin profile laminate with visible seams or busy patterns that attempt to mimic stone often read as low-end instantly. In contrast, simpler surfaces with subtle veining or solid tones feel timeless. Edge profiles matter too. Basic squared laminate edges versus thicker, refined profiles create completely different impressions. Surface choice signals durability and taste simultaneously. Open shelving done poorly also downgrades quickly. Shelves that sag under weight, brackets that look industrial in a non-industrial space, cluttered styling. When open shelves aren't curated carefully, they amplify visual noise. Closed storage often feels more expensive because it hides complexity. Another subtle but powerful factor is symmetry. Humans instinctively respond to balanced compositions. When light fixtures aren't centered over tables, when art isn't aligned with furniture, when rugs are off-center, the room feels unsettled. That unsettled feeling translates as inexperience. High-end spaces feel intentional because alignment is precise. Now, let's talk about color undertones again in more depth. Mixing warm wood floors with cool gray walls without transition planning creates tension. Undertone clashes are one of the fastest ways to cheapen a home visually. Cohesive undertone strategy, either consistently warm, cool, or carefully balanced, creates sophistication. When undertones fight, rooms feel chaotic. Another visual downgrade is over-accessorizing surfaces. Countertops crowded with appliances, bathroom vanities covered with products, coffee tables overloaded with decor. Luxury is often about restraint. Clear surfaces signal order and confidence. When every surface is filled, it communicates excess and lack of editing. Now consider stair railings. Thin metal balusters with basic builder-grade handrails feel mass-produced. Upgrading to thicker profiles or cohesive finish adds visual strength. Stairs are architectural focal points. Weak railings weaken perception. Here's the unifying theme across all these features: cheap is not about cost alone. It's about lack of cohesion, proportion, and intentionality. A modest home can look refined if finishes align, scale is respected, and details are consistent. A large, expensive home can look cheap if those principles are ignored. In 2026, perception is powerful. Real estate listings are judged within seconds online. Social media has trained people to recognize visual harmony quickly. That means small details carry more weight than ever. A few visible shortcuts can overshadow major investments. The encouraging reality is that many of these issues are correctable without structural renovation, swap lighting, standardized hardware. Upgrade trim, adjust rug size, repaint with cohesive undertones. Replace plastic accessories, edit decor. Focus on alignment and scale. Refinement comes from discipline, from choosing fewer finishes, from repeating materials consistently, from respecting proportion, from maintaining surfaces carefully. When someone walks into your home, you want them to feel calm confidence. That feeling doesn't come from excess, it comes from cohesion. So before you chase the next big renovation, look at the small signals. Are metals consistent? Are light temperatures aligned? Are trims proportionate? Are rugs properly scaled? Are surfaces curated? Because in 2026, making your house look expensive isn't about spending dramatically more. It's about eliminating the details that quietly make it look cheap. And when those details are corrected, the transformation isn't just visual. It's psychological. Your home stops feeling like a collection of parts and starts feeling like a place that was designed on purpose.